Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Jeremy Crow, and tonight I wanted to talk to you about Luciferianism. This is a topic that I talk about a lot on this channel, but tonight I want to specifically talk about what the beliefs of a Luciferian are from my perspective. One thing to get out of the way is that nobody can speak authoritatively on the topic of Luciferianism for everybody. I only speak for myself. Luciferianism is a non-dogmatic philosophy, spiritual system, however you want to define it. It is non-dogmatic. So anything that I say here tonight is going to be my personal perspective. And I want to make that clear up right off the bat. Beyond Zebra says, "Howdy, Jeremy. Hey, how's it going? Glad you could make it." One thing that I'm doing tonight is that I actually have an air conditioner running in my room here in this office, and I put a filter on the mic to try and minimize background noise. So I'm wondering if anybody can tell me if they can hear me clearly or if there's a lot of background noise. That would be helpful, because this is something that I try to do because it's so hot tonight. I wanted to keep the air conditioner on because otherwise it's going to get really warm in here. Can you hear me okay, or is there a lot of background noise? Is the filter working properly? Oh, that's okay if you weren't able to make it last night, Beyond Zebra. That's totally fine. You can always watch these videos after the fact as an archive. If you go to my YouTube channel and go to live streams or past live streams, all of those are still available to watch after the fact. No background noise. Do what you must to stay cool. Thank you so much, Beyond Zebra. I appreciate that. All right, so one thing that I like to do on these live streams sometimes is start off with some form of divination. Lately, I've been using a playing card deck that I'd modified slightly to turn it into a minor arcana, but I think tonight I'm going to read from the Tao Te Ching. This is the copy that I use, that I've had for quite a while. So what I was going to do is just flip through and then just randomly read one of the chapters in the Tao Te Ching. So let me just put the mic down for a second here. Okay, I'm just going to flip through. Okay. So there are 81 chapters in the Tao Te Ching, and this one that we happen to land on tonight is chapter 45. So this is a form of bibliomancy, where you just randomly open a page in a book, usually some sort of spiritual book of spiritual philosophy. A lot of people will use the Bible, and that's kind of where the term bibliomancy comes from. But bibliomancy really just means using a book to do a divination. And you can use any book. I could have used the I Ching, and you can do that instead of throwing the coins or the arrow sticks as a way to derive which hexagram. And there's 64 hexagrams. I have an I Ching right over here, but tonight we're going to use the Tao Te Ching, and we got chapter 45. So let's see here. A great thing done is never perfect, but that doesn't mean it fails. It does what it is. Real richness means to act as if you had nothing, because then you will never be drained of it. The greatest straightness seems bent. The greatest ability seems awkward, and the greatest speech like a stammering. Act calmly, not coldly. Peace is greater than anger. Tranquility and harmony are the true order of things. Interesting. So that was chapter 45, and wondering if that had any resonance with anybody listening to this live or even as an archive later on. If it resonated with you, leave a comment. But okay, so the topic for tonight is the beliefs of a Luciferian, and that Luciferian being myself. I am a Luciferian, and I have been considering myself a Luciferian since at least the year 2000. I think a little bit before that, but definitely at least since 2000, I have considered myself a Luciferian and have been sharing information about how I believe with basically anybody who's interested in listening to it. So I've been putting out articles online since the year 2000. I believe was the first official article or essay that I wrote and posted online. And before that, for about 5 years before that, I was doing serious study in the occult and practice as well. I started studying and practicing ritual magic as well as tarot when I was around 17 years old. Actually, I was 17 years old when I got very serious about it and took it on as a discipline. And I'm 47 now, so that's about 30 years as a serious occultist and about 25 years or maybe a little more as a Luciferian. And during that time, my beliefs have continued to change and evolve, which I believe is part of being a Luciferian, is not having that rigid, fixed belief. That as you learn more and as you practice and have different experiences, your belief system continues to change and evolve over time. And that's one of the major differences within Luciferianism and similar adjacent paths compared to some of the more mainstream religions, for example. So I was raised Christian. It wasn't a particularly religious upbringing, but they did want me to go to Catholic school. So something you may not know about Canada, where I was born and raised, is that there are two public school systems in a sense, where you have regular secular school, just called public school, and you also have Catholic school, and sometimes it's referred to as the separate school system. And when you do your taxes, you have to say whether or not you want the portion of your taxes that go towards funding schools, whether you want it to go towards the public school system or the separate school system. And so most of my growing up, I went to Catholic school, although we moved around quite a bit. And if I was ever in an area where I had cousins, I would go to the public school, because any of my cousins, then I would go to public school so that I could go to school with them. But otherwise, and most of the time, I went to Catholic school. And I started questioning things pretty much right off the bat. But, you know, as a child, you tend to just go with whatever you're told by adults, especially your parents. And so even though I had a lot of doubts throughout the whole system, I just continued to practice and believe in mostly what I was told. But I actually even I felt a calling to the priesthood even at one point. But as I learned more and more about the Roman Catholic Church, the more I realized that it wasn't for me. I didn't agree with a vast majority of the beliefs. The more I understood about it, I didn't believe in, I didn't agree with the history of the church. Like, I was appalled at the horrific things that the church had done. So by the time I was 17, I was ready to. Actually, it was before that, but I was ready to consider myself not Christian anymore. And I'm also indigenous, so I'm not sure if anybody knew that, but I'm Ojibwe. And so I was also raised, along with Christian beliefs, I was also raised with indigenous culture as well and indigenous beliefs. So there's some cognitive dissonance there, right? But somehow we made it work, like a lot of other indigenous Christians. But that contributed, I believe, to my ability to kind of break out of that system of brainwashing. Really, is how I see it now. And through that, I did a lot of exploring of various different world religions and spiritual systems, not just present but also historic. So I would look back and see, well, what did people used to believe? You know, Christianity didn't exist forever, for one thing. What did people believe before that? And what are all the different religions that have come and gone? And ultimately, I ended up practicing Golden Dawn style or inspired ritual magic, and practicing tarot and meditation. And I was inspired by a lot of neo-pagan as well as Buddhist and other Eastern traditions as well. I took inspiration from wherever I found it, whatever kind of made sense to me. And then ultimately, by the time that when I turned 21, I ended up joining an esoteric branch of Freemasonry. Some people call it fringe masonry or clandestine masonry. It was a Masonic order that allowed both men and women equally. And the focus was on the esoteric side of things. And I took my initiation into the Entered Apprentice degree, and I went through, and as I was going through that, and the next year I took the second degree, and I think it was a couple years after that I took the Master Mason degree. Now, if you're familiar with Freemasonry in the United States, often people will go through those 3 degrees just even in a weekend. But the order that I was part of was more serious about taking each step individually. And so I took my time with it, and I went through each degree. And I was seeing things that had some resonance with kind of an underground or current, you could say. And I started putting the pieces together, and suddenly I realized that I really resonated with the term Lucifer in its original meaning from the Latin light bearer or bringer of light. And it just kind of suddenly clicked. It was like an epiphany, and I realized, oh, this is what I've been looking for the whole time. And you know, I didn't even quite admit it to myself, but when I realized it, I was like, you know what, this is what I was actually looking for when I joined Freemasonry in the first place, to see if it really was Luciferian, like a lot of people say. And it turned out that there were 2 main factions within the order. One of them was Esoteric Christian through the Liberal Catholic Church, and the other faction were more Luciferian, although they tended to keep it quiet. And if you go through my old videos, you'll find some more in-depth stories about what happened during that experience that I had with esoteric Freemasonry. And let me just quickly look at a few comments here. Beyond Zebra had mentioned that divination I gave earlier here, that parts of it resonated. Very cool. Jester, cool. Hello, Jester. Hello, Stu. Infernal blessings to you and all here. Yeah, you too. Welcome. Let's see here. Beyond Zebra said, I wish I had been ready to deconstruct from Christianity at a similar age, was pushing 40 before I was ready, and it took professional help. Yeah, everybody comes to it in their own time, and some people, most people actually never leave Christianity. People who tend to be born into Christianity mostly stay within it. Jester also says 93. Yeah, actually, I did actually, after leaving the Masonic Order, I ended up becoming a member of the OTO for a little while. First I was a kind of a hang-around where I was participating in a lot of the public events, and I had a bunch of friends who were in the OTO, and eventually I decided to join the Minerval degree. I became an officer of the lodge. I was the treasurer, as well as I participated as a blackguard in one of the initiations, and I also did a video on why I left the OTO. I have a YouTube short that kind of summarizes it, but I also have a full video that's one of my most popular videos on this channel, actually, that talks about why I ultimately left the OTO. And so if you're interested in learning more about that, you can check that out. Stu said, quick question, how far away do you see the left-hand path understanding and practice today compared to the days of European witchcraft which dealt with the church's persecution? Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of night and day, isn't it? Where nowadays, there are a lot of places in the world where you can openly practice various different left-hand path traditions, and including Satanism, Setian philosophy, things like that. And actually, most people consider Luciferianism to be left-hand path, and I did for a very long time as well, but now I think that it can't be quite easily categorized in left-hand path, right-hand path. And just a few days ago, actually, I did a video on why I feel that it's a little more complex than just the standard dichotomy that you see talked about a lot in Western esoteric tradition between the left-hand path and right-hand path, because I feel like Luciferianism kind of transcends those. And the reason being, and this gets into the core of what I think Luciferianism actually means, and so let's jump right into that. I think that people talk about whether, you know, they are theistic Luciferian or atheistic, and I don't think that that's even as important. You can be either and be a Luciferian. You can literally believe in Lucifer and work with that entity in various different ways. Some people actually worship Lucifer. I don't worship anything, but that's my personal decision, and that's what makes sense to me. But I don't think that that's the most important part of whether or not you're Luciferian, whether you literally believe or whether you adhere to the philosophy and lifestyle of Luciferianism. I think that the core element of whether you consider yourself a Luciferian, the most important part is whether or not you try to embody the light bearer archetype in your own unique way, depending on the circumstances of your life and the context in which you find yourself. That is the most important part. I like to compare it to heroism. So if you are practicing heroism, it doesn't mean that you're worshiping heroes. Whether you do or you don't is irrelevant. The most important part of practicing heroism is whether or not you are um, embodying the qualities of hero and committing heroic acts with your life, with the choices that you make in life and the decisions about how to behave in the world, whether or not those are heroic or not. That determines whether you're practicing heroism or not. And similarly, I believe that if you are practicing Luciferianism, the most important aspect of that isn't whether you worship Lucifer or not. And like I said, I don't, but I believe that whether you're seeking to embody the qualities of a light bearer is the most important part. And that's my personal opinion. As I said at the beginning of this live stream, I speak only for myself, because Luciferianism is not a dogmatic belief system or philosophy or religion or however you want to term it. So each person comes to their own understanding of what it means to be a Luciferian and what you mean when you say that you are a Luciferian. So if you had missed that earlier, I feel like that's an important thing to reiterate. Now, from that, there are a lot of ways you can elaborate that. So what is a light bearer? What are the qualities of a light bearer? And actually, something that I just released earlier today for the summer solstice is the debut issue of Snake. This is the official periodical of the Novus Ordo Luciferi. The Novus Ordo Luciferi is an esoteric order that I founded that is to help foster community amongst Luciferians around the world, as well as to teach a system of occultism that I have refined over 30 years of practice into what I have now crystallized as Luciferian alchemy. So if you are interested in learning Luciferian alchemy, or if you're interested in fellowship among Luciferians around the world, you might be interested in checking out the Novus Ordo Luciferi. And there is a link in the description below that you can check out. A couple links, actually, if you're interested in learning more about that. And actually, after this, in about 20 minutes or 15 minutes or so, I'm going to be doing a private meeting for Novus Ordo Luciferi members. And so if you wanted to jump in on that, you can actually join immediately, and you'll find the link to the secret meeting link in an unlocked post on the Patreon. And so you can jump in right on that tonight if you're interested. And you'll get access to all the teachings, and we have over 45 hours of recorded past lessons that have occurred that we've recorded. Most of them are taught by myself on topics such as lucid dreaming, astral projection, energy work, tarot. There's a really in-depth one on tarot, the new Luciferian era and the calendar that goes along with that, the ritual calendar that I developed for that, and all sorts of other occult subjects like that. But if you are interested in learning more about the light bearer archetype, this issue of Snake, which is a mini zine format, I'll show you here. It's actually a single page, which you make a cut and a few folds, and then you end up with this 8-page little mini booklet. And it's just a single sheet of paper. And if you want to purchase a copy of this, I'll make one up for you and make the cuts and fold it, and I'll mail it to you. It's only $4, but if you want to DIY your own copy, then you can do that for free. And let me just share the link here with you for that if you're interested. Let's see here. I'll put it in the chat here. 1 second. And I'll put that in a pinned comment after this becomes an archive video. After the live stream ends, I'll make a comment on the video and I'll pin it. So if you wanted to check that out, so if you go to that link, you can actually download the PDF file and print it yourself. And there's instructions on how to put it together as well. Or if you don't want to bother and you just want me to make it for you and mail it to you, it's like $4. And yeah, that one, this debut issue of Snake is all about the light bearer archetype. And there is a little mini bio of 3 mythological light bearers, as well as 3 real historical light bearers. And so you can learn more about that if you check out this e-zine. Actually, it's a print zine, but you can download the PDF and look at it that way. I suggest printing it off and making a cut and folds to turn it into this, because it's a lot easier to read than having to try and look at some of it's upside down if you're looking at the PDF. And if you unfold it, then you will see there is a full essay called The Light Bearer Archetype that I wrote for the order. And then this is kind of the format, and you can kind of put it back together and get this cool little mini zine. And we're going to be doing these every about a month and a half. So on every equinox, every solstice, and every cross quarter festival, so 8 times a year, we'll put out an issue of this mini zine Snake. So, oh, hi, Nocturnal Frequency Radio, welcome. Everybody check out their channel and subscribe to it. They got some really cool paranormal topics that they talk about there. I've been a guest on their channel a few times. It's really fun. Okay, yeah, so if you want to learn more about the light bearer archetype and what that means, I highly recommend checking out this issue of Snake, the debut. It just came out. And yeah, so we're going to have a private meeting at 11:11 tonight, Eastern Time, which is in 11 minutes from now. And so I think I've covered mainly the core points that I wanted to cover tonight on this video. And if you wanted to hang out with us later, in just like I said, in about 10 minutes, then you can join the order right now. It's only $5 a month, and you can cancel anytime if you realize that it's not really for you. Then but if you wanted to jump in on the chat tonight, check out the description below. There's a link to the Patreon. You can join through that, and it'll unlock a post where you'll have that meeting link. And so I'll open it up for some questions. If anybody has some questions that they want to ask me before we wrap this up, so that I can have that, so I can get ready for the meeting tonight. Let's see here. I have a cross of St. Peter chain on right now. Nice, Jester says. So I've read Michael W. Ford's book, like the Black Flame Tradition, of the Bible of the Adversary. Have you read those? Yeah, I've read a bunch of Michael Ford's books, and actually I wrote a chapter in one of the books that he published called The Wisdom of Yosferos. So I wrote the chapter on the new Luciferian era in that book that Michael published. And that was during a time when we were both co-heads of the Greater Church of Lucifer together. And that was later renamed Assembly of Light Bearers. Now that organization is currently inactive, but yeah, we did some really fun stuff when we were working together on that project. And yeah, I've read a bunch of Michael Ford's books, and I have a bunch of copies that he's written notes in it for me at the front of it, so that those are definitely holding on to those. Let's see here. Stu Henny says, appreciate your explanation. I feel on this path we're not trapped into any specific system. We are free to evolve our relationship with historical cult traditions and the various pantheons of spirits. Absolutely, yeah. I feel like it gives you the ultimate freedom to explore. You know, some of the traditions that I've explored a lot are Taoism. Like, I've been looking into that a lot lately, especially, and like that's why I picked the Tao Te Ching for the bibliomancy today. Something else that I'm really fascinated by is Santa Muerte, which is really cool. A practitioner in Mexico that I respect actually sent me a copy of his book, and he sent me some icons as well, some little statuettes of Santa Muerte, 3 different ones with different colors, as well as a stone carved skull, which I've used quite extensively in ritual. And he sent me a couple other things as well. And that's a tradition that I think has some really cool things that I've learned a lot from that tradition as well. There's a lot of really interesting traditions out there. Tibetan Buddhism has some of the most advanced lucid dreaming practices that you can even encounter in this world. The Esoteric Order of Dagon is something that I've explored as well. Not the Thelemic one, but the other one. There's more than one. And I'm actually a lifetime member of that, although currently inactive because I don't have the time to focus on it. But there was a book called The Backward Path by Howlard Delreth. And I'll put a link to the book for that if you're interested in checking that out. And that kind of explains a lot about the lucid dreaming practices that they perform in their tradition, which is also quite advanced, I find. And yeah, there's some really cool stuff out there to learn from. And even while exploring all those things, I still consider myself a Luciferian, which to summarize, I feel like it's about seeking hidden and forbidden knowledge and sharing that knowledge with others in order to help empower them, to emancipate them from ignorance and from systems of power that twist knowledge and prey on people's ignorance. And sharing knowledge undermines those systems of power that are based off of exploiting ignorance. And actually, if you want to delve a little deeper into the light bearer archetype, I think it was about a week ago, I did a live stream on King Sejong, a Korean light bearer, a real historical light bearer from 1500 who embodied the light bearer archetype in his own unique way. And that's a good example. Prometheus, of course, is a great mythological example as well, if you wanted to look at a mythological one. Enki is another example, and some of these have little mini bios in here. So, for example, Enki, we have Hypatia of Alexandria, we have Prometheus, of course, we have Marguerite Porte, who was burned at the stake for sharing knowledge, like Giordano Bruno was as well. Pandora, I consider a light bearer, and that's kind of an interesting one that people might not think of at first. And I did actually include King Sejong in this mini zine as well. Let's see here. Let's see here. Beyond Zebra said I don't see the annual subscription on there. I'm not sure what. Oh, the annual Snake Zine subscription. Yeah, so I haven't had a chance to create that item in the shop, but I'm intending. Maybe I'll do it later tonight. But I was intending also to have an annual subscription to the mini zine, where you'd get the 8 issues that come out in a year, plus any bonus issues that might come out for like $25. So you'd save quite a bit instead of spending the $4 8 times a year on individual issues, and any bonus issues you'd get basically for free if you bought that subscription. So I am going to add that to the shop. So I'll probably have that up later tonight. If not, it'll be up there tomorrow. So let's see here. Any thoughts about the watery age of Aquarius having a hidden deeper meaning relating to Leviathan surfacing into our timeline up from the deep abyss? Well, that's an interesting proposition, Stu. And I don't actually have time to get into that, but that definitely ties into what I refer to as the new Luciferian era, which I say began on December 21st of 2012 in the Common Era. That was the beginning of year 0, and now we are currently in year 12 of the new Luciferian era, and there's a whole calendar with a date format for that. And let me just quickly check. I'm curious what specifically today's date is in the new Luciferian era calendar. And as a member of the Novus Ordo Luciferi, you get access to a Google calendar that I set up with all the dates in the new Luciferian era. So let me just take a look here. Okay, so year 12, lunation 6, day 29 of the new Luciferian era. And tomorrow is a new moon, so we go into the next lunation. So today is 12/6/29 NLE, or new Luciferian era, and tomorrow will be 12/7/0 NLE. So year 12, lunation 7, and day 0 of that lunation is what tomorrow is. So tomorrow is a new moon, which is important in the system of Luciferian alchemy that's taught within the Novus Ordo Luciferi. And on that note, we actually have that meeting coming up in about 1 minute. So I'm going to have to jump off here. And if you're interested in joining, like I said, check out the description below. There's a Patreon link. You can join that. There's a post that'll unlock if you join the $5 tier or above. And you can jump in tonight if you want on that private members hangout, where we sometimes will do formalized lessons which we record, and you'll get the full back catalog of all those recordings if you join. But tonight we're just doing a casual hangout that will not be recorded. So if you want in on that, you can only get that live because we're not recording the casual hangouts. Okay, so I really appreciate everybody who was hung out here tonight and participated in the live chat. I see there's quite a bit of activity here, a lot of people making comments, and I really appreciate your participation and hanging out with me tonight. And anybody who's watching this as an archive after the fact, I really appreciate that you stuck around to the end. If you really enjoyed this video, I encourage you to hit the like button if you want to see more of these. And I'm doing these quite often, almost every night. So if you subscribe to it, you'll get those notifications. And yeah, share these videos with anybody you think that might be interested as well. And until next time, everybody, stay lucid.